This is the LA SIGGRAPH event, the VFX of Horror, and thank you all for coming tonight. My name is Sunil Rampersad, and I am the chair of this chapter. Tonight's event is sponsored by Redefine, a company that provides creative visual effects and animation services, both to expand in international markets and to independent filmmakers everywhere, working with companies like Netflix and Disney. So big thank you to Redefine. Yay. If you're unfamiliar with the LA SIGGRAPH, we are a group dedicated to showcasing the best of, as well as innovations in the fields of computer graphics and interactive techniques, producing 10 events a year and supported by our members. So consider joining if you like what we do. Our group is run by an executive council made up of volunteers, many of whom are here tonight: Larry Rosenthal, Nick Hernandez, Dave Kurlander, Elizabeth Cameron, Kathleen Milnes, and Tim Evernow. We also have our past chairs, such as Leonard Daly, who you heard speak just before me, Joan Collins, Ed Orujo, Diane People, Fran Benjamin, and Ed Lance. Tonight's moderator is Maija Beeton. Maija is a Los Angeles-based artist and producer whose work often intersects the boundaries of fine art and technology. She's produced animation, assets for VFX, for TV, films, games, and emerging media. Maija, all yours.
Thank you, Sunil, and welcome everyone to the VFX of Horror. So the inspiration for this event is that when the goal is to create work that's so mysterious, strange, or unexpected that it sends chills up our spine, there is a lot to achieve aesthetically and technically. And in the genre of horror, there's so many different flavors that it's important that everybody, is working to create the same result. And so this evening, we have two panels. And the first panel is going to focus on mixing practical and digital effects for film and TV. And this panel is going to be quite visceral. So if you are afraid of blood, you may need to look away at times. But don't worry, because the second panel at 8 o'clock is going to look at the world of world building in League of Legends Thresh Unbound, A Night at the Inn, which is a cinematic, which is more in the Disney Haunted Mansion theme category. It's not, there's no, well, I shouldn't give it away, but the blood isn't running that fiercely in that particular panel. So let's begin with the first panel. And if Todd, Andre, and Johnny want to come on, I will introduce you to them. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, how are you?
Hello,
good evening. Well, all of these gentlemen have worked together at Masters Effects, and Todd Masters is the president and chief monster maker at Masters Effects. And he's a designer and the chief monster maker to North America's longest running monster effects shop, Masters Effects. And you've probably heard of them because they've won multiple Emmy Awards, a Saturn, numerous Leos, a Gemini, an Ace Award, and they were nominated in 2012 for the VES Visual Effects of the Year.
And I won a cow too.
Did you win a cow? What was that for?
I won a cow for a commercial I directed, and the award was a golden cow, and it weighed a whole bunch of pounds. It was really heavy. So
I'm sorry that you didn't bring it. Yeah.
I'll show it to you.
When Moses returns, keep it hidden.
Oh no! Oh, you know it's going to be an evening like this for the rest of the day. So just to let everyone else know, though, that Todd is a veteran of the golden age of practical monster making, and he worked on. Pardon?
It means I'm old.
No,
you're old. Sorry, Maija, go ahead.
There's got to be another term. He's a mentor. He's a veteran. He's worked on classics like Big Trouble in Little China, which I've seen too many times to describe. Night of the Creeps, the original Predator, Poltergeist 2, Hellraiser. Which number was that?
It was the one in space. So Pinhead in
4.
space. Of course, it was. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I just fixed it.
Okay. Nightmare on Elm Street 5 and Tales from the Crypt. And over 34 years, he and his company have left a mark inside and outside of Hollywood. And you'll probably remember their work from The Cadavers for 6 Feet Under, The Vampires from True Blood, the maker of Jack from Jack in the Box, Bib, or is it Bib, the Michelin Man, Borg from Star Trek, Babies from Look Who's Talking, and Werewolves from Underworld. Oh, even Chucky from Child's Play, and the Predator from the recent The Predator, and way more recent credits, which you can look for on IMDb. But just to let you know, Todd and Masters Effects continue to innovate and lead the art form with a unique approach to every project. And they were among the first to integrate practical effects with visual effects. And Todd has been a leader in mixing practical and digital creature effects for decades and is a founding member of the Visual Effects Society. So, yeah.
That guy sounds cool.
Yeah, you are very cool.
Fantastic.
And
I want to party with that guy.
Yeah, me too.
So the next cool person in this panel is André Bustanoby, who is currently a visual effects supervisor at Redefine. And André is a 30-year veteran visual effects artist. That sounds old too. Who has worked at Boss Films, Digital Domain, Brainzoo Studios, and Aaron Sims Creative. And he's worked on movies such as like Alien 3, Batman Returns, Cliffhanger, Waterworld, Species, Multiplicity, Michael Jackson's Ghost, Titanic, Lake Placid, Terminator 3, Cat in the Hat, Sky Captain, The World of Tomorrow, which Joan worked on too. Fantastic Four, 8 Below, Overlord, Azura, Stranger Things, season 1, Midnight Texas, and The Mist. And so to get back to how André relates to Masters Effects, upon his graduation from Washington State University, where he studied mechanical engineering, he joined Masters Effects as an animatronics engineer and contributed to the effects on both The Howling Six and Tales from the Crypt's Werewolf Concerto, where he also played the main werewolf in both projects. But that was because the suit fitted him better. Okay, anyway, we won't go into that. He can tell you that story. But anyway, André returned to Masters Effects in 2008 and was contributing VFX and makeup effects design efforts to projects like True Blood, Fringe, Falling Skies, Dumb and Dumber 2, and the Twilight Saga, Eclipse, and Underworld 4. So he currently works at Redefine, where he has supervised visual effects on Maidan and The White Tiger, and another show, which he'll show you a sneak preview of. And he looks forward to continuing to merge the tools and techniques of both analog and digital media in the service of good storytelling. And last but not least is Johnny Banta.
Way to go.
Yes, he's
Also
a visual effects. He's a visual effects supervisor and digital makeup supervisor. And please, with all of these panelists, please look at their IMDb, because I couldn't condense their histories in this space. But anyway, so Johnny, starting at Boss Films in 1996, Johnny went on to invent many early stereo 3D conversion methods at Sassoon Film Design for large format film. And he pioneered digital makeup methods and pipelines for television and motion pictures, such as the TV series Fringe. And for several years, he worked at Masters Effects as a digital makeup supervisor, where he and a talented team of artists blended standard makeup techniques with digital tools and extended practical effects reach by cross-training artists. So he's invented many methods to manipulate character performances based on actor input, and he's hidden the seams between rubber and reality. I like that description. And Johnny's going to show you some very specific material on that process. So that's it.
Awesome. What a panel.
I'm going to let you guys take it away.
All right. Well,
Honored to be here. John,
yeah, you guys rock, and I'm a real privileged to be here as well. So it's nice to be with you guys again. Quite a talent, both of you guys.
Likewise.
Thank you, Todd.
So now what are we done? Is that it?
That was fun. So
okay, great. Thank you very much, everybody. Let's go back to work.
You have to stay on until questions at 7:50.
I can start sharing the video, Todd. Good.
That's a great idea. We actually
Rock
have
and roll.
visuals. Hopefully it works. Okay, so this first part is Masters Effects stuff. We're kind of known for weird materials. We like stuff that's stretchy and translucent, and we actually even had producers say, hey, your stuff looks digital, because we like kind of push it into that realm. And so everything that we were doing for the longest time, like here's a test from Slither, for example, was all this stuff that was kind of pushing the boundaries of what practical could do. So when André and Johnny were back in the shop and working with us, mixing this practical stuff with digital, we kind of found this whole new level where we were able to kind of expose through these in-house tests with the not quite ready for primetime players for Masters Effects. We did all this stuff to kind of prove concept for features and, you know, come up with shot designs that we weren't really thinking about before because we didn't really have the tools right in-house. So we were able to shoot these down in the shop, and then André, in this case, would take it and comp it together for, you know, a good test for a shot for fringe there. Actually, ouch. The test turned out better than the shot. So this is another one where he's in a practical head with Sam Pollen's face comped on. More great examples of kind of blurring the lines. A lot of people know us for the Cochise stuff and the Falling Skies effects. This was a practical effects led monster sequence that Johnny and André came back and added a face was also created practically. This is the world famous Ashman, and here's some practical befores and afters that you can really kind of feel the tangibleness of the practical business that we bring. Other shows like Star Trek First Contact, Queen Borg coming together was mostly practical, and the CG stuff was, you know, in kind of tandem with that. Another good shot from Falling Skies, comp by Zoic. André, I remember you tracking this for a while. That's from Belco. So using these tools really kind of not only expanded our shot structures, but also our design. We were able to really kind of push into areas that we weren't before with, you know, designing stuff, and even the interiors were kind of pushing the bounds of what we could do practically. So by mixing the mediums, we really started kind of seeing a real level that other practical effect shops weren't looking at. And we started to come up with critters that nobody else thought we could make. This is kind of a step-by-step of the Overlord, these Svenny critters from Falling Skies. And they were originally supposed to be all CG. There was one day in a meeting, they said, well, hey, could you make a shadow? So, well, we could make a stealth suit. So we started building it. And here you see the various steps we kind of went through, including these garbage bag tests that we put onto one of the shop guys on stilts. That got refined into this version, which was a full-fledged stilt walking suit, still not with any detail, but you can see it's already looking pretty good. We've sort of solved the shadow problem. Now we wanted to make it like look really cool. So we just kind of added some bells and whistles and came up with this thing that's coming up in a moment here. Great thing that we noticed about actually having this kind of physicality there, tangible stuff, is, you know, people actually respond to it as opposed to like a tennis ball maybe on a stick. So it was interesting to see how actors and directors started dealing with this kind of creature when, you know, if it was not there, if it was just represented by, you know, a piece of cardboard or something, I think their shots would be set up differently. I think their performances would have been different. So we started seeing like a lot of free stuff that we didn't really expect. You know, interaction with these prosthetic characters that were now coming to life as cast members, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, the director could direct them, the actors could act against them, the DP and the camera ops could frame their shots, and
well, we can always go back and sweeten it, right? So like here's a shot from the show where we did go back and we just added some little blanks, and I don't think we did a whole bunch else. Like, there's a little face stuff, I think, John.
Oh, is that there's face across the whole thing. There's not just that.
Well, you can give them full name. So these are storyboards for the upcoming Day of the Dead on Sci-Fi, actually, this weekend. Well, a lot of the information we need to get to create the horrific elements is to really get into the heads of the directors. So I do a lot of these kind of scribble boards just to kind of simply work out shots. Obviously, storyboards are nothing new, but it's it's important for us to kind of get into the brains of these people so they can understand what we're understanding in terms of where a practicality is needed. Here you go, Johnny. There's Johnny burping up a werewolf from Hemlock Grove.
Curry, I'm sorry.
I always think it looks like a big submarine sandwich or something. This is step-by-steps of Hemlock Grove, which was a sequence that we were nominated, and I think we won some stuff and all that, where we really kind of wanted to push the practical digital envelope a little bit, mostly because the first season had a transformation sequence that was mostly digital, and we wanted to show what was possible with a practical finish. So you're seeing here a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, where you're seeing a lot of the, you know, the seam still. And in a second, we'll show you the final sequence. Like here, we actually used, you know, a portion of a wolf mouth just so we can get that hand, internal mouth, and goo all practical. And then it was later replaced with a CG head. But you know,
for continuity reasons, actually.
Mm-hmm. But the whole transformation was designed and executed kind of between the first unit setup in Toronto and then our shop, which you see this right here, where we're doing all these kind of practical pickups. This shot here actually was something that I think, Johnny, you comped in a morning.
Well, they actually hadn't planned for this one, and they came back with it, and we had already figured they're going to want to grow the arm back, and so we'd already war gamed all this stuff, and Dan said we should just get a bunch of rubber nernies and go with that.
So here's the sequence.
Yo, what the fuck?
Oh, sorry, curse
Thanks,
word.
Jake.
We don't roll like that.
We don't roll like that.
Set me free.
So Hemlock didn't really, I think that's the end of it, Johnny.
Yeah, I was just looping around until you want me to stop it.
Oh, there you go. Like, nice finish. So the what we learned in that whole sequence, you know, Hemlock was not a big budget show. It was actually very tightly budgeted, and we had limited resources to do that. And so that was a real exercise of designing the sequence and executing some of those key tests that you saw, and really spicing it where it needed, and trying to keep, you know, the budget really relegated to just a couple shots that, you know, I think really are groundbreaking. And the other thing I think we noticed in doing all this stuff is how much tangible stuff actually affects you emotionally. We noticed that, you know, people watching the werewolf sequence, for instance, would actually wince in certain areas because they really felt skin ripping, and they really felt skin breaking or stretching or whatever than that. they kind of the hotel of any possible like rendered material seemed to be kind of fooling them, I guess. But we've noticed also in comedies and other horror films that a lot of times, a practical solution is your friend for some of that stuff, because your audience is already expecting to be fooled. So if you can trick them elsewhere, it seems to work really well. So,
I mean, it's somewhat. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to transition to you, my friend.
No, I mean, so much of this is about shot design. Obviously, how do you tell the story of the sequence or the beats, the transformation in the case of Hemlock Grove, or a demonstrative performance of Cochise here? It's like, all right, what's the shot design? Is it a close-up? Is it a wide shot? Is it over the shoulder? Is it a walk and talk? But what are the ingredients of those shots? How much is practical? How much is digital? How do they mesh? So much of that is part of the design that is super critical to get into as early as possible, because by the time you get to set, there's a lot of things that are locked and loaded.
Yeah, we kind of need to know the plan. Do you remember
Completely.
Spencer Susser's animatic he did? I think we should tip a hat to him, because Spencer, our director for that episode, he actually shot a sequence in his apartment, I think on his iPhone, using somebody's dog, I think, kind of like shoving it out the guy's mouth and stuff like that. And he laid out a lot of these shots in this early animatic. So
someone's small dog.
Yeah, small dog, someone held behind the head and just kind of like, and then it was great.
No, totally. It's whatever it takes to get what's in one's head out to everyone else. And you start talking about it, and you start saying, this is what the director wants and needs to show. All right, how do we execute that? What departments does that involve? It's absolutely critical, because once you're on the day, or God forbid in post, it's often too late.
I actually think it's as important as tone meetings, because we're setting a tone with this style of effect. And a lot of filmmakers, haven't been through the gauntlet of filmmaking, the big effect sequences. And they don't know going into it what's going to come out the other end. And so you really have to kind of hold their hands in ways that they have to obviously trust you with. But it's definitely a trick to kind of get everybody to kind of go along, especially if you're doing an unusual process like practical digital.
Well, they don't want a lot of times they're not looking for that final plan at the beginning, due to people like André himself, early on doing work in digital makeup. When he was at Digital Domain, he was doing work for on Bjork for was not All Is Full of Love, the Hunter video, in which we were starting to see people do tight skin tracking and so forth, and you would go back and forth between what was real and what was digital. It's the kind of thing we see all the time now, but in the mid '90s, that was like, oh, we're going to do this thing, we're going to do this thing. And it was looking like, Stan Winston started picking up the idea of like, well, I'm going to do something digital as well as practical. And all of that kind of got thrown out the window around 1999. And I know we like to blame Jar Jar Binks for many things, but let's go with that as well. He introduced an annoying, believable character. And from that moment on, it's like, okay, that's fantastic. And then a few years later, we get hit with Gollum, and then we go in with Davy Jones on Pirates of the Caribbean, which are fantastic creations. And they look so amazing. And everybody says, I want that in my film. I want that digital character. So as far as they're concerned, I just shoot something and you all figure it out in the end. So the idea of planning, what visual effects used to be a lot of planning ahead of time, because you had to shoot it on the day, was all pushed to the back end. There's still planning and design going on after the fact, but the digital teams weren't brought to the table as much as they needed to be. And often the laziness in that design and not having those original tone meetings and knowing what we're going to film ended up with things sometimes not working very well.
Yeah, because I mean, just from experience, the last place you want to be in post is designing something. I mean, that does happen, but I've been in situations where you're literally and you're like trying to figure it out from scratch.
Right. So let's go going on top of that. the reaction started happening. You would get you get things like, this is all done digitally, and or no, it's all done practically. That's what it is, practical. That's what everybody goes for. And there's so much digital work going on. The members of this audience know how much that work is done because it's their names that should be up there having done it. But because of the schism that has happened, there needed to be some way of coming together. And makeup artists especially had the schism because their jobs were being taken away.
Right, but what is, I mean, at least to me personally, for a lot of the work that we've seen and stuff that that you can't talk to, or even I can't talk to, Todd as well. What really gets me up in the morning is when there's a shot or a sequence, and it is such a mix. The audience doesn't get hung up on technique. They're in the story. They believe the character. They believe the effect or the beat. And they don't care about the technique, and they're there. That is, to me, what is exciting, and the goal that I often try to go for is to get past the technique, sell the shot, sell the moment, and tell the story.
And see, the thing is, all three of us had worked at Boss Film Studios at different times, and and despite the fact that Todd and André have known each other for, how old are you now? Anyway, I want to answer the question. How long?
27.
Since we were kids.
Quite a few years. I of all things, I met André Bustanoby in a chat room online. I know how dire that sounds, but I started visiting him at Boss Film Studios, and we started talking visual effects, and over the years began a friendship. And then when I was at Zoic Studios, I started working on the TV series Fringe, and I'm going to credit J.J. Abrams with the idea of like, well, can't we just go this next level digitally? Because he had that breakout thought is like, we can carry this as far as we can with makeup, but we can go to the next level digitally. And then eventually, Todd Masters and team were hired to do that the practical effects work, and then I was doing the digital effects on the other end. We were melting people and turning people inside out and morphing between different monsters and creatures and all sorts of things, but we weren't talking to each other. The design was done by other people in boardrooms. You would do your half, and then maybe we'd completely replace you, or I always tried to maintain what was there and carry on because I felt that's what Abrams was after. And we just started, because André knew both of us, got us talking and said, we should do this together. We should actually be, this should be a single unit. We should have one design, one concept, and carry it forward. That we design a solution, not just part of a solution. So if you guys are okay, I can go on the next step of the slides. Since I'm watching our time, are you okay with that?
Tell us more.
Yes, please.
Tell us more. Okay. So on designing our approach, we're very well aware of the amount of time all of us put in visual effects. Our families complain about it, we complain about it, and yet we keep coming back. And there's always the concept that makeup effects look real, and when they're not really thus. So what we're often you'll hear the word uncanny valley. It's rarely applied to a makeup monster with a glass eye until it moves. And that movement's always been the thing they've been trying to overcome. It'll be animatronics and all sorts of things. So what we figured was like, well, we can get part of the way on one solution and we can finish off with the other. So we go with a hybrid approach. And part of that was mixing corporate cultures as well. So on the digital side of things, when people think digital makeup, they're often thinking of the kind of work that Lola admits that they do, but never says who they do it to. And they'll never really tell you their processes. And they always kind of equate it with getting a facelift or, and so forth. So they'll have a header, do you want to lift the cheeks? Do you want to do this? So you'll have that Beverly Hills consultation on how good you're going to look. Since, this is LA. It's done all the time. No, it isn't. So we had to do the same thing digitally. We had to start to figure out, okay, what is it that we're doing that's not just taking someone's age away? Well, we need tool sets. We need to be able to do skin sliding. We want to try and do manipulation of the image rather than full replace and creating digital creatures. So you can see these slides right here. I had a picture left over of Leonard Nimoy for some work on Fringe. And if you look on the right, you can see the standard two-dimensional warp, and you can see how far that image is moving. And you're like, that's not so bad. But if you look at the image on the left, the skin is sliding over bone, as it would in real life. We do this all the time with digital fascia simulations and skin simulations. But how do you do this in 2D? So this is the kind of techniques that I started working on.
And Johnny, this takes a relatively deep knowledge of basically, anatomy, sculptural sheets, and really respecting how a human face or an alien face may or could or does work. I mean, it's always based in, original reference.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to use the image. You want to use the reality of the image in front of you, what it's telling you, and you want to try and carry it to that next step. So we like to leverage sculpture as much as possible. We did digital sculpture as well. Of course, ZBrush is quite ubiquitous in the industry, but there's something about sculpting with clay, and it pushes back at you. You have a dialogue with it as well. So often we would scan something and we would use that. Or as you can see up here in this part of the garbage bag test, we're going to have people inside there doing the motion instead of full-on CG animation, because it gives it weight. And even if we need to modify it or take a limb off, there's still something informed from that. And even down in the bottom in these tests where we were trying to give life to, you can't have real babies on set for very long, so they have puppet stand-ins. And I know a company that actually sells them quite a lot. Rents those out. They might be around tonight. But we tried to find a way to give them some life in the middle range and something that could be performed. So we could do this warping after the fact. So these images here are Masters FX work being applied digitally and modified digitally at Zoic Studios. But the name was the thing. We had all sorts of bizarre naming sessions with marketing people and saying, "Oh, what are we going to call this thing?" And I said the easiest thing is this: in every script you read, you see the word MFX when makeup effects are called for. And so I kind of liked what the iPhone and all those things are doing. So I said, why not DMFX, digital makeup effects? Because it kept it short, it kept it simple. And then I'm going to be in a makeup effects shop. I'm not going to be sitting there saying, well, we'd like to get the inverse kinematics working a little better and some subsurface scattering, because we've got to get all of the, all of the subdermal tissues and everything working. And we're going to sit here, we're going to be simulating muscles and fascia and all this stuff. We weren't doing that at all. We were making rigs. For 100 years, makeup or more, makeup effects has been able to create the illusion of life by moving very few things with levers and pumps and air bladders. And so we should design our effects to work that way, as opposed to trying to recreate every muscle inside of a character. So we adopted the language like post-animatronics, because it's the kind of thing you would have done with an animatronic. We're going to do it after the fact. We would have digital puppets. Often Andy Serkis is called, digital makeup. No, he's a puppeteer. He walks around in a motion capture suit and he feeds the group the information that the other teams are going to start working with. So we have digital bladder gags, so forth. But sculpting, painting, rigging, and gluing are all the same thing. It's just one's a little bit less toxic than the other.
Yeah, and the key here, and you may have mentioned it, Johnny, or about to, is how much Doug Jones was critical to this process.
We have a space for Doug ahead.
Fantastic.
Okay, so DMFX generally, as traditional makeup is used to modify the appearance of an actor and so forth. We use prosthetics to modify their silhouette, puppetry and animatronics, and on this basis, we use digital when the practical is incomplete, or as a word, impractical. And the unity of these two methods is DMFX, and it can mean many things. What I liked, I kept the nomenclature going with like things called like de-age. This is an example from Zoic Studios where we took 14 years off of the 80-something-year-old Leonard Nimoy for an episode of Fringe, and we learned that in 1992 he was still old, but he's less old. But on set, Masters FX did him and John Noble some, to work on the face, hair, and so forth to bring them back as far as they could, and then we took it the rest of the way using techniques that were invented in 2000. Actually, were invented a little before that, but were popularized in a 2001 paper by J.P. Lewis, and where he took the spots off of a Dalmatian but kept all the detail. And that opened up this whole concept of detail transfer. And in our case, it's used for several things. It can de-age people. We can use it to change overall lighting and sculpture, remove things. all sorts of very useful techniques useful results come from the technique.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, de-aging is a subtle thing, and John, not to I just want to say on, you got to be really careful you don't lose structure, because certain parts of anatomy, especially the human skull, how skin, as Johnny mentioned, goes over the, how the skin goes over the bone and the jaw, and
yeah, and it's not just the high frequency bump maps. I mean, you can take out wrinkles and skins at different levels. If you don't retain some portions of that texture, that's really hard.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if we can take some of that down with makeup and then do the heavier lifting beneath that actually keeps things a little more grounded in reality. Mm-hmm. And as this says right here, this never takes place. I have no idea what you're talking about. I will deny this when that actress walks up. Okay, so the de-age appearances, I told you about J.P. Lewis's work. But down at the bottom here, we have the tests from Almost Human. This is one of our makeup team at the time, I believe. And sorry, say again?
Yeah, that's Leonard Nimoy. No,
yes,
okay.
Hello, Leonard.
He looks great. No, that's JJ.
Yes, he was also another JJ.
The other JJ. Yeah.
But we were starting with the idea of like just putting some simpler appliques on them, or whether we were going to modify certain parts to begin the effect. But then we wanted to give the digital appearance by removing a lot of that detail. And you would always be able to tell a human because they had all the skin detail that we didn't bother to put into the robots, because we just stamped in just basic flesh detail. And we also modified his blink rate. We modified how quickly he looks. So if you notice he blinks, he has these kind of doll eye blinks. We were able to do that by taking the motion from his footage and retiming that, but only bits at a time. And we had a whole plan to do all these things in various stages. The client loved it. The visual effects supervisor did not, and therefore it didn't get used very often.
It was really an interesting transition to learn there, because there are certain things that makeup artists, trained to be really detailed eyes, just can't get to that level. And you were able to kind of pick that up and carry it to a point that was impossible for practical artists.
We wanted to take the decades of experience of all these people who create reality out of rubber, and teach that to the people who spend all their life behind a monitor. They don't get out. They don't touch things. They don't. And what that did, the people downstairs doing all of the sculpture work came upstairs and started learning how to do 3D tracking, and started learning how to do rotoscope and photogrammetry, and vice versa. We went downstairs and we could look at a piece of silicone or a piece of latex and see how it stretched and see how it moved, and so we had more reference for what we were doing. This right here, these shots right here, also from Hemlock Grove, were quite an interesting learning. We were originally going to be just replacing the eye with a digital eye. But what we learned, though we have the blink digitally from two of the sculptures that were done practically, this is actually just her screen right eye copied over and scaled. Mm-hmm. And what that did is it kept it alive. It kept all of those things, instead of recreating reality, just move it over a couple of pixels and you have the result.
Yeah, and then that kind of goes to maybe a deeper point, which is, one of the things about animatronics, and Todd, you could speak to this. I've dealt with it over, early in my career. Physics are physics. The materials are the materials in terms of foam, latex, silicone, actuators, whether it's pneumatic, whether it's RC or whatever. There are limitations to the physics of real materials. What digital has to perhaps its advantage is not that limitation, but you need to know what the governors are. You need to consider how something should look, irregardless of the technique, that is organic. It's real. It feels right. And that takes observation.
That's exactly right. And it really kind of comes down to that handshake we always talk about,
Yeah.
It's like the assets of one methodology are kind of the liabilities of the other. Practical looks real because it is real. Digital has to really push hard to look natural, organic. So they kind of, you can kind of share things like that. But as your point, an animatronic eye blink would not, if you can go back to Goonies and look at Sloth, for instance, and it's just not even close to.
It's slothful, one would say.
It's slothful. Yeah. So
But
Sorry,
you can maybe I don't know, Johnny. I mean, you know, tell me yes or no. But you can almost take that and you know do a little bit of some massaging. Yeah, there's moments that work and moments that
Absolutely.
don't.
We could
Absolutely.
with today's tools, you can make something like that work. Okay, I have 10 minutes. I got to get to some stuff here.
No worries. Thank you.
This test right here you're looking at, it's an incomplete, so the compositing on the left side is not as good as it could be. So the digital eye was just the first pass. But what we started to notice is that, I don't know, she's acting like a blind girl because she can't see. The actors can't see, and so what would have informed that? You know, what we learned from that is we probably would have left eye holes open and closed them digitally, because if you look at the performance on the right, which is minimal makeup modified digitally to take her left and right eye and jam them together. She's alive. She's looking around. She's happy because she has full cognitive control. So between the two of these, we would have had a very interesting result, which didn't end up going anywhere, unfortunately. Too bad. We like the idea.
No, tests are good. Tests are good.
Okay. So here's the other thing about applying prosthetics digitally as opposed to doing them practically. You can't sometimes glue something to somebody in time. Or in this case, you can't put the cake frosting on their face. Oh, that's lovely. Okay, so that didn't turn out as good as I had hoped in the playback. I apologize. Don't know what's causing that. That would be a crash. Everybody who uses computers, you know what this is. So give me 1 second, please.
You see, practical effects don't crash on you. That's another.
Oh, they just burn up on set. Okay, so give me 1 second.
True. Yes. We've seen
Smoke
that.
test.
Well, so
speak to that one a second, if you could, Todd.
well, sure. I mean, you know, what we have there is a digital thing that you know, if we were on set with a practical thing, we would probably, yeah, like Johnny said, have a servo burn or something like that, which we actually did have on a rare occasion on Falling Skies.
We were actually going to shoot that face prop that you saw everybody in front of the green screen on set. If you remember.
Yeah, that's right. We did. That thing was made out of cake
frosting.
Cake frosting. That head that dripped apart that you can't see. The jaw falls off. And Jason, the guy that built that, had this crazy idea. Sorry, go ahead.
No, he literally he put it in the freezer. I mean,
Yeah.
For 6 months.
Well, we actually shipped it to Vancouver with dry ice, and it sat there for a while.
Yeah.
Then we didn't shoot it, so then we shipped it back to LA. And I don't know, Johnny, you were busy or something, but we couldn't shoot it for a while.
Okay, so sorry if it's sharing a little differently. Can you everybody see the image all right?
Mhm.
You're not supposed to ask that.
I didn't ask that. What are you talking about? I was never here.
No, it looks good. I think you're, yeah, this slide. There you go.
Okay, we're going to get past these guys. They're not going to
Yeah,
play well.
I think this one's doomed.
It's doomed. Oh, gosh almighty. Yes, live. Welcome to live demonstrations, everybody. I'm going to get past this slide.
No worries.
Well, so we've had a couple good questions we might as well get to
Please
while
do.
we're here. Is that okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so this one's from Brian Sanchez. How do you see virtual production and real-time capture technologies synergizing with practical as we move forward? How has it already changed how you approach shots? Great question. You guys want that, or you want me to try it?
No, I can start with it. I mean, I come from, like I alluded to, an animatronics background initially. Todd, you and I were doing stuff in our freaking mutual garages when we were kids, literally, in Seattle. But I always loved being able to puppeteer, make something mechanical that could move, something that the camera could only see a certain way. And then as I transitioned more into visual effects, I got into performance capture. So I got into how do you take human movement, human performance, and digitize it, sample it, bring it into the computer, manipulate it, edit it, mix it. And I mean, here we are 20 plus years later after Titanic. And that process, whether it's body, face, fingers, hands, all together, cloth, multiple characters, it's all inherently real time. It's how it is then captured, how it's presented. And if you want to do it then and circle it around in terms of a VR context or LED walls or Unreal, it's about what does it need to look like? Does it serve the story? And does the technique, honor or get it done with respect to the final image that you want to see?
Let's show you the coolest motion capture suit ever made.
Yeah.
We actually had to petition the VES to allow us to keep this effect because they said.
And I do think in my lifetime, we might actually see the end.
That's the test that we got away with. We weren't supposed to shoot that.
They actually canceled you 5 seconds earlier.
I'm flattered that you used my full name, Professor.
And then this is the test that
I'm
actually
quite fond of the name
they sent to Spielberg
Cochise.
In comparison to a digital version that was being done. And they did an apples to apples, and they never told us what the results were.
My happiest moment in life, I think, is when I got the email that said Spielberg likes our Cochise. Take it however you want.
So it's mostly Doug Jones, and then tracked, and then Johnny and Andre and team went nuts, and you guys emoted most of
Like the
Cochise.
rest of my comrades, I was born on the ship that set out from our world hundreds of years ago.
Still informed by Doug, obviously.
By his
He was,
performance. You guys came up with a really creative way to translate his performance to a efficient movement system that was just brilliant. And somehow we got through that show.
Yeah, so it isn't just blinking eyes. The post-animatronic rig that we built for Doug analyzed his motion so that when he turned his head, his eyes would precede him. His vocal tracks were analyzed at different frequencies so that we could take out, do breathing and so forth. We found little twitches here and there and use that to drive portions of the other stuff. And then artists, compositors would work on top of that.
Yep.
And this is the one we showed to Doug, and he was floored with and said, "That's exactly what I was intending."
I refused. I told him I would find the power core and I would destroy it on my own.
These are all we've got.
So it's a great performance by him, but it was incomplete. And in early versions, he appeared like this on set, and everybody was taking pictures of him and posting them on the net. All the actors who could get away with it, they were posting them while they were shooting him, and in many ways were ridiculing him because he looked so goofy in it. But the moment you put the full makeup on there and put him inside there, he was acting. He wasn't somebody being replaced by a digital effect. He was the effect, and he was driving everything else. So have you seen we've had the test that Todd showed earlier? We even developed other characters and costumes, and we even this little puppet guy down here you'll see in a second, applying similar rigs to different characters. So this is our famous Biclops, infamous Biclops, because you couldn't put the animatronics inside the head. And in the lower left, you're going to see a hand puppet. The little wiggles in the ears are actually coming from the performer at a slight tremor in his hand that day. And it adds just so much character to the thing, and we could do all of the manipulation in 2D afterwards. Oops.
Oh, the coffee and cigarettes, I think.
Yeah, and then you can see the amount of motion we were able to get into the Ishveni that we never really explored.
I cannot say one way or the other.
Okay, so yes, we're going to show you this because you saw a little bit of the enhanced Brian. So we had these shots of Brian like this. The name of the character, Brian, someone's brother who's being turned into one of the monsters. And we thought, well, we could do this all digitally, but it would cost us the same amount, and we would get reality if we sculpted it by hand. So we put all these things together, shot specific elements, retimed them, tracked them back to the face, created some digital legs, and yes, a slingshot arm. No idea why. To create this final look. It still has the feeling of the original makeup because it's made by the same artists. And I dare you to find where the join is on this. It's not where you think. Oh, and then finally,
that's the cover of Fango, 1972.
We continued the idea.
Very Argento. Okay.
All right.
Yes.
Somebody had to shoot this character up.
Ready? Okay. Ready.
And action. And drop.
This is for the gunfire, right? Where they're shooting?
Yes, it is.
What a performance.
Absolutely.
That is an award-winning performance.
Emmy award-winning there, and here's the result. So we had an actor in the suit on set, moving around. He had limited animatronics doing some of the gross motion. We then would do the digital animation of the of whatever blinks and eye movement we wanted to have, and then composited the practical elements on top, as well as doing all of the sparks and fire and so forth. So
why did you remove me from the shot? I was perfect.
Client notes are client notes, Todd.
Okay. We couldn't key the yellow lettering on your black T-shirt.
Right.
Anyway, but no, I mean, honestly, we were literally shooting this stuff on a DSLR in a lot of cases, and it was about looking at how the lighting was on the plates. Sometimes the spheres came in handy, and then we'd take a look at that, and then we'd say, all right, throw in the spheres, and we'd relight it so that our element that we'd shoot, DSLR or otherwise, would match in and help the composites.
And that's a digital technique using chrome spheres to sample lighting.
Yeah.
But we moved it back into the practical environment.
Hey guys, it's Maija here.
Hello, Maija.
I was just wondering if you want to shut down or stop sharing the screen so that people can see your faces and people can ask their last questions. We have about 5 more minutes.
Perfect.
And I actually had a question. One thing that's come out of this is obviously the importance of design. And I was wondering, what are some best practices to get productions to smooth this workflow when mixing digital and practical for the effects? Like, what are some things that people like directors and producers could think about before they start a production? In terms
Tell
of
them they'll have more layers of control and that it can be cheaper.
Yeah, it's classic. Use the best tool for the best job. Even the film I just wrapped, or even the film I just delivered, I would take a computer with a bunch of software: Photoshop, ZBrush, Nuke, After Effects, Maya, whatever, Metashape, absolutely, Photoscan, Reality Capture. No, I go on set and I would bring all these tools and I would start saying, all right, here we are on set. Here's the shot. Screen grab, bang, boom it in. Here's the character that we're currently designing in context in the lighting. Show them as we're shooting. Even during production, or even more importantly, hopefully in pre-production, while you're doing tech scouts, you're doing location scouts, you're doing recce's. Take what's in the script, visualize it, put it into context, using whatever tool. I don't care. Clay, ZBrush, the most amazing renderer ever. It doesn't matter to me. It's about the shot, the design.
Yeah, it's also about the filmmakers, because you can have a good presentation with anything, and if the filmmaker's not informed for what you're presenting, then they will just move on to what they are informed to, and that happens a lot with the practical digital thing. It is tricky because like that werewolf sequence was 10 years ago. And that was even tricky to kind of get down the throats of some of the producers, less so maybe the directors and all that. But it always depends on the filmmaker. The Christopher Nolans, the GDPs. There's so many filmmakers out there that are really open to thinking of different ways of baking the same, pie, really. And it's so a lot of it is depending on that.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say,
it's all about bedside. No, it's about bedside manner.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Every filmmaker, every producer, every production company, every crew, in truth, because you have to gel into how it's going to be shot ultimately.
It's kind of related to a question that was asked earlier, Andre. One of the, I've lost it off the screen now, but there was a question asked about the techniques and if we were kind of disappointed by a lot of shows just get rubber stamp CG, which is that's part of the pipeline, and they're not interested in entertaining anything different. And the person that asked that question, if we were kind of bummed out that there was we want to use these techniques, but we don't have any movies to go to and use them for it. I think like what you were saying on the show that hopefully you still have time to show the trailer of. You're really pushing that, which is great. And of course, we certainly do. I know Johnny certainly does. And really trying to get the message out that, use the best tool for, the situation rather than always trying to cram, one technique for everything.
Yeah. Do we have time for that trailer and another question, Maija?
Well, we have we have a little bit of time. One question from Ian Failus.
Fails.
Yes.
Okay. You guys were pioneers in this work. Love it. What have you seen out there recently, or even being involved with yourselves, that you think follows these DMFX techniques, combining practical and digital, that has worked well? Is anyone else even doing this, Johnny?
I know that there's some things going on.
Absolutely.
Other makeup houses from about the same era as Todd that are also in the Valley do have some things going on.
Yeah, and thanks for the question, Ian. Good one. If I may speak to that real fast, we actually work on DC Legends of Tomorrow, shooting right now. And they actually, in the last season, came to us because of Cochise. I think I told you guys this. And the visual effects producers on it said to us, we want to Cochise these aliens. And they actually use Cochise as a verb. And we designed some aliens, which wasn't quite, what we had all done with Cochise. The Cochise process was, mostly a 2D thing, obviously 3D for tracking and stuff, but they had took a kind of a more 3D process. But still, leading with practical, we designed the mechanics to only go so far. Like, we didn't animate the eyes. We knew those were going to be sweetened from what we've learned, being better. And it turned out to be a real relationship in heaven. I mean, those guys and gals that work on that show are fantastic. And the synergy, like we always want, is the handshake. It's perfect. And so I do believe that there's other stuff out there like Legends of Tomorrow. So check them out. And your show,
Johnny,
Sorry.
No, Johnny, you were gonna.
No. I said there are some shows going around that I know about. They've asked my responses and so forth. I mean, we worked with a very well-known makeup artist as well, doing some work on actors. We'll never say that we did. But he's out there now working on Daredevil 2, and Daredevil 1 was also taking some hints from what we did. I proposed this idea to some of my friends at Weta Digital before, as we were just starting. It's like, why even try? Just replace it. And it was only like a couple of years later that they were doing nearly the exact same idea with the Daredevil face mask at Weta Digital. And so I felt a little bit of happiness there. But that idea is continuing. And the idea of keeping it in the hands of the makeup artist and bringing the digital into that realm is also still a very powerful one.
No, totally. And I think sorry, Maija, real quick, something that hasn't really been mentioned, at least that I remember in this entire conversation, in terms of technique, what do you use? How do you approach a problem? Budget, schedule.
That drives everything else, yeah.
Honestly, I mean, that at the end of the day is often where the rubber meets the road. And yes, can you replace it completely digitally? Yes. Can you do it completely animatronically? Yes. However, the best solution, given the budget and schedule, might be a deft mix of both.
Yeah. Show us the trailer. Show us the trailer. I want to see this thing.
Oh yeah, let's watch the trailer. And Daniel Beatty, Todd is answering you now. Sorry you couldn't get to your question verbally. Okay, so Andre's gonna show this trailer for some new work, and I just want to thank the crew here, and we will meet you in the after party, the VR members only after party. Okay.
Fantastic. No, this is a total shameless plug. This trailer just came out today via Paramount Studios, something I just wrapped and delivered earlier this year, shot during the heat of COVID pre-vaccine. So God bless production protocols. Here we go.
This isn't funny, Amber.
Would you like to play a game, Tara?
Doors unlocked. All doors locked. Doors unlocked.
happening?
3 attacks so far. Do you have a gun?
I'm Sydney Prescott. Of course I have a gun.
Something about this one just feels different.
Samantha?
I know who you are.
I've been through this a lot. This is your life now, which means that whoever this is gonna keep coming for you. You ready for this?
Oh, stop! Wait!
There's certain rules to surviving.
The attacks were all on people related to the original killers.
Whatever his link is to our past, it's pulled us all back here. And I won't sleep until he's in the ground.
Hello, Sydney. It's an honor.
Happy Halloween.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Thanks.
It's been a pleasure. Take care.
Okay, so everyone stand up and stretch and get ready for Chloe Veillard, who is a concept artist on Riot Games' Thresh Unbound, A Night at the Inn. And Jason, if you're in the house, can you start Chloe's video?
Hi, thank you for the invitation. I am glad to be with you. I am Chloe Veillard, a French concept artist, and I worked on Thresh Unbound with Riot. But I have a strong French accent, so I will continue to discuter with you in French and add some subtitles. Donc, avant de vous parler de mon travail avec Riot, Maija m'a demandé de parler un peu de mon attirance pour l'horreur. Alors en fait, pour moi, je pense que c'est arrivé très tôt, car à cette époque, je suis née dans les années 80, et très tôt en France, on a regardé de nombreux dessins animés japonais qui étaient quand même un petit peu violents, comme par exemple Dragon Ball Z, Cobra, etc. C'était quand même des dessins animés qui n'étaient pas censurés, avec un peu de violence, du sang, etc. Ce qu'on pourrait plus voir maintenant en fait. Mais nous, on adorait ça, on en raffolait. Donc ça, c'était un peu mes premières expériences avec des choses un peu violentes, tout ça. Puis en fait, je me souviens vraiment d'un film qui m'a beaucoup marqué, parce que j'étais très jeune, j'avais 7 ans à peu près. Je m'étais faufilée en fait dans une salle, j'avais pas vraiment le droit, mais personne ne regardait. Et en fait, était diffusé ça. Donc moi, j'ai regardé très jeune une bonne partie de ce film, et ça m'a valu de nombreux cauchemars par la suite. Donc voilà, ça a été un film qui m'a frappée, et j'ai compris plus tard que ça a été beaucoup le personnage qui m'avait plu, le fait que ça soit quelqu'un de gentil, qui d'un coup devenait terrifiant, qui m'avait marqué. Voilà, donc ça a été les premiers designs très forts pour moi. Ensuite, il y a eu Carrie, c'est pareil, j'ai regardé Carrie très jeune, on était avec les copains, on avait 11-12 ans, et un copain avait pris une cassette VHS à ses parents, c'était Carrie. Je me souviens avoir été quand même très effrayée, et en même temps totalement fascinée par la revanche que Carrie prend sur ses filles, qui était horrible. Et donc une attraction pour l'horrifique, les pouvoirs, la revanche, ça m'a... Malgré la terreur que j'ai eue, ça m'a beaucoup marqué en fait. Donc voilà, ça c'était un peu les débuts, et ensuite plus tard, il y a eu des films et des séries qui ont commencé à émerger. Tout d'abord, il y a eu X-Files. En France, ça passait tous les samedis soirs, et je regardais ça avec mon père religieusement et mes sœurs. Puis il y a eu Buffy. Alors Buffy, ça a été très marquant parce que déjà ça parlait de vampires, il y avait tous ces costumes faits main, les masques, tout ça, parfois effrayants mais parfois très comiques. Et c'est vrai qu'adolescente, j'ai vraiment été fascinée par cette série pour plusieurs raisons. Déjà, c'était Buffy, l'héroïne, l'élue. Elle avait beau ressembler à une bimbo, elle combattait avec courage et force tous les hommes. C'était l'élue la plus forte. Et ça, pour les filles, à l'époque, c'était vraiment, ça a vraiment été quelque chose de fort. Ensuite, il y avait aussi l'attirance pour Willow, cette fille qui semblait normale, un peu nerd, n'avait pas trop d'amis et en fait avait un don immense pour la magie et une force redoutable. Et aussi bien évidemment une fascination pour le vampirisme. Et de là j'ai commencé à me documenter, à lire des livres, à regarder des films de très grands classiques comme Dracula. Ou des choses un peu plus à l'eau de rose comme Entretien avec un vampire, tous les Underworld, Une nuit en enfer. C'est d'ailleurs, je crois, à partir d'une nuit en enfer que j'ai commencé à regarder des tonnes de séries B comme Arachnophobia, Evil Dead, Rocky Horror Picture Show, Délivrance, Massacre à la tronçonneuse. C'est vrai que j'adorais vraiment à cette époque, au niveau du visuel, l'exagération, le kitsch, les gueules cassées, les grosses haches, le sang. Et j'ai eu d'ailleurs ma période, très très grosse période, Wes Craven, avec Freddy, et après avec ses slasher movies, Scream.
Like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
You never told me your name.
Why do you want to know my name?
So I want to know who I'm looking at.
Et pour moi, Ghostface, c'est vraiment une icône de l'horreur au niveau de son design et son graphisme. Alors moi, j'ai commencé le dessin assez tardivement, c'est une deuxième carrière, mais quand j'ai commencé à dessiner, j'ai tout de suite allé vers l'étrange. J'ai commencé par des hommes qui avaient des têtes d'animaux, puis ensuite un peu du vampirisme, et très vite j'ai concentré le chara-design sur des personnages qui venaient du post-apo, un peu plus punk, voilà. Moi j'ai eu une vraie période aussi zombie, donc j'adorais ça. Et très vite avec mon travail perso, je me suis focalisée à dessiner des femmes fortes, qui parfois avaient un visage peut-être un peu juvénile, mais j'aime bien cette dualité entre un peu un visage doux et en fait une rage intérieure assez forte. Donc quand l'équipe de Riot est venue me parler de Thresh Unbound, j'ai vraiment été conquise de suite. On a fait un chat avec Lilit, Brian, Dustin, où ils ont commencé à me raconter l'histoire et ils le vivaient vraiment, ils m'ont décrit les personnages, ils étaient à fond. Ils avaient des idées très précises de ce qu'ils voulaient, donc c'était vraiment un régal de pouvoir les aider à forger leurs personnages. Le premier personnage que j'ai dû créer a été Linkkeeper. Ça a été vraiment un régal de le dessiner. Alors au début, comme on peut voir sur les premières recherches, il était un peu trop maigre et peut-être un peu trop chic. Donc Lily, Dustin, Brian m'ont accompagné et me poussé à ce que je lui fasse un ventre un peu plus imposant, un double menton bien épais, un regard plus vil, une méchanceté dans le visage, tout ça. Et je me suis beaucoup amusée à le faire, c'était vraiment un personnage très cool pour moi. Ensuite, on s'est attaqué à Bort, donc avec sa pince de crabe. C'était assez drôle parce qu'il me l'avait mimé, ils en rigolaient entre eux, ils connaissaient bien le personnage. Donc voilà, ça a été une grosse aventure aussi, ce personnage. Et donc ça a été comme ça, des va-et-vient et des échanges avec l'équipe sur ses habits, sa pince, ses chaussures, et aussi avec Marina qui a travaillé aussi sur Bort. Voilà, donc ça a été vraiment un personnage haut en couleur et très fun à dessiner.
My dear Bort, there is life, there is death, and there is me.
Et ensuite, j'ai travaillé sur cette grosse image, voilà. Alors, je n'ai ni designé la carriole qui est l'œuvre de Marina, ni designé les environs. J'avais donc à designer ces hommes transformés en fantômes. Je suis passée par plusieurs étapes. J'ai commencé en couleur et ensuite j'ai travaillé sur le vert. Donc on a travaillé avec Lilit sur comment il devait disparaître, est-ce qu'il fallait avoir un peu de volute ou pas, de la transparence, etc. Donc voilà, ça a été la dernière image sur laquelle j'ai travaillé pour ce super projet que j'ai adoré par son côté horrifique, par son humour complètement décalé et puis cette super équipe qui vraiment m'a apporté énormément. Donc merci encore pour l'invitation, passez une très belle soirée et à bientôt.
Merci Chloé, merci de Los Angeles. Speaking of being in France or in New Orleans or in Montreal or Vancouver, I just want to say that in 2021, I feel that LA SIGGRAPH is for members who are in LA, who were in LA, who want to be in LA, and who will be in LA, because it's sort of a conceptual virtual Los Angeles at this point. So I just want to invite everyone who thinks of themselves as part of the conceptual Los Angeles SIGGRAPH community to join LA SIGGRAPH, because you completely belong in LA SIGGRAPH. So anyway, and I want to thank Chloe for making that video. She actually studied cinema and worked in animation and video games for 15 years as a storyboard and cinematics editor before she branched into drawing 5 years ago. And she taught herself everything from scratch, and her favorite field is post-apo. And she has had the pleasure of working for studios like Don't Nod, Ubisoft, Quantic Dream, Activision, Unit Image, and of course, Riot Games. And so to move from the concept art into the making of A Night at the Inn, I've asked Lilit Hayrapetyan, who's the senior manager art director at Riot Games, to speak about the process that she used to bring this project to life. And I'm really delighted to present her now. So Lilit, welcome.
Hello, hi everyone. Yeah, this is really amazing evening. And by the way, just wanted to tell Todd and Johnathan and André, like, it was such a fantastic work. I was like, kind of like really intense, like watching what you guys did. I was following the Stan Winston character studio for a while, and to me it's really amazing to see this kind of like a practical effects, especially knowing the CG. It seems like really complex, and really appreciate what you guys did. So, and thank you, Maija, for presenting, and it's really thanks a lot for having us to present our work here. And my name is Lilit Hayrapetyan. I'm art director at Riot Games, and I've been working at Riot about 6 years, and it's been really amazing experience working at Riot, because we feel the support and like to be like creative, and Riot really provides these necessary tools like encouragement and a wealth of the resources. And you can see from Chloe's example, we can at Riot have this opportunity working with one of the best artists in the industry. And even like every project I work at Riot, I really have this feeling that it feels like I'm working on my personal project, which I didn't feel like working before in the industry. And today I would like to share some of the work I did at Riot, and also I'm going to share our incredible art journey working on the cinematics Unbound, Thresh, directed by Dustin Wiki. Let me just share my screen and then we can just get started. Okay, share my screen. Oops, sorry. Just a second, yeah. So one of my first projects working at Riot was Any Origin Story. It's really interesting, like it's really on the dark and intriguing side of the story, and it's directed by Anthony Passibon. Again, this was my really first like project at Riot Games. And Annie is a League of Legends character. Like in the game, she holds this teddy bear Tibers, which transforms into a giant demonic fire bear protecting her. And Annie's story is a really emotional and dark and intriguing one. It has this twist of the character transformation of an innocent child. And this short has really quite few ingredients that I feel I should share here. It has this painterly style that looks like handcrafted traditional painting, but it's combined with the traditional CG that we did. And then like on this traditional CG, we added painterly projections and then we projected back on the geometries. And plus we added a lot of like a cell animation on top of this CG to look handcrafted. So again, like if anyone who likes this dark, sinister genre, I really recommend to watch this. Another one of my recent projects where I also had the privilege to direct is also on a mysterious and dark side. It's called Shadow Isles. It's from the Tales of Runeterra, also featuring a sinister Thresh, but in his original appearance. And the stylistic approach here is also unique, and we called it like 2.5D. And this was achieved by building a simple geometries in CG. And then we create a matte painting based on this geometry, and we project back on the geometry again, and we get this painterly artistic look. And we still can move the cameras here, but we have this limitation. So that's why we called this 2.5D. So we cannot move the cameras like 360 or like have the whole freedom that gives the CG. But again, like we get this more like stylized artistic look. And even some of the backgrounds here are more like matte paintings rather than built in 3D. And looking back to my work done at Riot Games, like presented the dark ones for sure, I also found some happy content. So it's not like I only worked on these dark projects. So I found some uplifting and happy ones too. But I don't want to focus on those today because this is about more like a dark, sinister genre. But as you can see, I really enjoy the full palette of different styles. Realistic CG, stylized CG, illustration, comic book style animation. And now you have seen some samples from my work. I would like to share the Unbound Thresh and see how we began the process of making that menacing video. Let's get started. Thresh is a League of Legends character. He's originally an ambitious and restless spirit from the Shadow Isles. Shadow Isles was cursed and a noble home for enlightened civilization known Blessed Isles. And now it's a dark and mysterious region, mostly inhabited with the cruel and twisted spirits. And Thresh collects souls, imprisons him into his lantern, and tortures them internally. And with this new, mostly human form that we are going to present you now, Thresh is really free to wander the world, so he's not chained anymore to the Shadow Isles. When I first read the story, I really loved it, and then I was actually surprised. Why do I like this villain, and how does one create a character appearance who is charming, delightfully evil within in this alluring environment? And even everything became more interesting when we got this first story bits from one of our storyboard artists, Rambert, at the beginning of the process. When we started to work on the cinematic, the game model was already designed, but we still had some liberty to tweak the character's appearance. So we took this opportunity to make his appearance even more expressive, influential, and strong on its own right. And here you can see our first concept. On the left side, we were working with concept artist Marina Krivenko. She was the one designing Thresh. And on the left side, you can see her first sketches. And we really liked the version 2 from her first concept, but we gave the feedback to make the hair longer. And then now one is going to ask like, what's wrong with the short hair? And actually the answer was simple. It just didn't match to the game model. We still wanted to have the impression, some similarity like with the game model. So it's not completely a new character, but we wanted to still keep this, the touch of intelligence, strengthen his appearance, and also to give the confidence on his appearance. And on the middle, you can see the final concept that Marina did. And then after, when we were satisfied with the final concept, we moved to build in a 3D. And Axis Studio was working on the production side of this video. And we already established the style with them. And it's very similar, like this, it's called like the same like 2.5D technique I shared with you earlier, where we have the geometries, we still like have some painterly textures and everything on them. So they did really amazing work, like making this video production like to look beautiful and more stylized and painterly. And again, this is the technique was developed when we worked with them on a Telesol for Terra. And after releasing the cinematics, Unbound Thresh, like our players, they really loved the appearance of Thresh in this video. And they asked Riot actually change the model in the game, and the request was accepted. So on the left side, you can see the original model that Riot did for the game. And then on the right side, you can see the updated version, which is closer to what we have in this video. And the next step for us was just like working on his outfit. And we had to find the references, keeping in mind our goals, keeping him elegant, expressive, and confident. And this Victorian Gothic style of the outfit worked really great with those points. And it added the hint of this nobleness, which was perfect. After sharing the references with Marina, we got the first sketches. And on the left side, you can see the first sketches, and going to the right, the evolution from the sketch becoming a 3D. And there are like few elements just wanted to highlight about the designing of his costume. And one of them, one detail is the keys. And Thresh, anyone played League of Legends or knows Thresh character, they know like the key is so symbolic for Thresh. Thresh once, when he was in the Blessed Isles, which was before Shadow Isles, he was like a warden protecting some secret collection of dangerous artifacts, which was locked in the Blessed Isles. So he had these keys. So that's why when he transformed to this demonic Thresh character, he still had these keys. So that's why we wanted to keep the key element, but to keep more like an accessory. So you can see we have this here on his costume. And when we first in cinematic, we introduced Thresh, we heard from some players like, oh, this is like it was very symbolic. We've like really recognized that this was Thresh here. Another interesting element was designing even like his colors, like making the shapes, this repetitive color shape was like inspired from his game model, which has this kind of like a multi-layer armor on his chest. So basically the design was followed to his game costume. So transformation from the human form, more his demonic Thresh character form, it was kind of like a nice smooth transition. And even a really small detail like the embossed texture on his leather costume, it was also symbolizing some of the patterns from the Shadow Isles, like you can see on the right. And here you can see our handsome nobleman waiting for his meal at the table. So this is kind of like how he's looking in the video. And this was actually one of my favorite moments in the video, revealing his true essence when he says to Board, "No, Board, I'm keeping my appetite." I feel that was such a strong Thresh moment that kind of like revealed him like really in a true way. And that now we're just a few steps away from unfolding the authentic Thresh. This was just some of our references for the next scene setup. And then the door explodes, a flash of a burning skull face resolving quickly to Unbound Thresh. Dustin did really, really amazing work, like showing so many layers of his personality. And Thresh is definitely pleased to be in this new form. So he's not changed to the Shadow Isles. He really enjoys his new adventure. And now I would like to share a lovely character board designed by Chloe that she shared like earlier. In this video, a waiter named Board is working in an inn restaurant in Southern Noxus, and he really struggles to serve the food to the customers because one of his hand has been cursed and been transformed into a giant claw that acts on its own. And again, this was just an inspiration, the very first step, creating a character that we shared with Chloe. And here you can see our final look of the board, lovable off with the face off you can still empathize with. And Thresh, poor board, is really unable to stop his uncontrollable claw from spilling the food he was delivering. And now we already know two of our characters. I would like to speak a bit about the color script. Creating color script is a really important step. It gives such an interesting identity. And we wanted to have the entire set and the most of the attire to be in the worst deep action red, wine colors on earther tones. And then when we represent Thresh, he really stands out against with his complementary green necroteal, which serves the horror genre really, really great. And every time we were getting some composited shots from Axis, we were always going back to the color script referencing, and it was really helping us to give notes to Axis and trying to even like match the lighting that we did in a color script. So this was like a Bible for us to follow visually, and highly recommend, like in any animation, like just having polished color script, which helps really a lot. So it's not just helping the colors, it's also helping to get the lighting really right and feel the flow of the sequence. And I can just give you an example here. And this was just one of the first passes that we received from Axis. And the hue of the blue was not quite right. It was monochrome, and we were missing some reds from the candle lights that we had in a scene, and not to look this like only blue monochrome lighting. Plus, the silhouette of Thresh wasn't strong enough here. We checked back the color script and we saw so much depth in the image, and his silhouette was like really, really strong over there. And you can see this was the color script. Again, like the guy he's holding, he has such a strong lighting, but still it had like really nice depth and lighting. So we gave the note to Axis. We came back another pass, and again, it was a really nice pass. But still, we wanted Thresh to pop more, because right now you can see his glowing chest. It's the main thing that takes attention. And what we do at Riot a lot, particularly me at Riot, making those GIFs before, after taking the shots and doing the paint overs on top of it. So it really helps to deliver the notes rather than just the writing notes, just making visually what you are looking for. Again, for me, to make the paint over, I was just looking back to the color script and then creating the paint over and shared with Axis back. And we got the desired result, and everything was really happy. And now I would like to move to the environments, how we created the environments for Unbound Thresh. Graphic Studio work on the concept art of the environments. And this story, as I mentioned before, it takes place in Naxos. It's a region in Runeterra. It's a League of Legends, in a League of Legends universe. It has this brutalist architecture in Naxos, and they also have a mixed of this brutalism style with a Gothic style. So this was my inspiration and references that we shared with Graphite. And on the right side, you can see it's more like this industrial dining area. On the left side, on the middle top, you can see this was more like a Gothic style. And I also added one more ingredient, which is the Art Deco style. So basically, I asked Graphite, please mix these three styles together. And this was the first pass from them we received, and really great work. We loved it. I think they really nailed down the style of Naxos. But the space felt really, really big for us. We already had the characters designed. This didn't feel working with them. This felt like too fancy. And after working with them on a few iterations, giving some notes, we got the final concept, which was really working for what we were looking for. It again has this red Naxian red, and plus the blue light from the window helping to have scenes with Thresh. So Axis started to model the environment based on the concept. Another concept we received from Graphite was this top-down view for the Thresh collecting soul set. And again, we really liked it, but it was missing some Gothic style elements. So this was a bit too simple for the interior that we were looking for. And after just giving some notes about the details, how to improve, how even have the lighting kind of like closer to our references, we got this final concept that again was really matching to the goals that we were looking for the Thresh scenes. And here, this was just for the exterior shot and just gathering inspiration and helping the artist to design the space and the brief that we shared with Graphite. And on the bottom, you can see a few images from our universe page, which is again like some concept art for the Naxos and some shape languages, a rough composition, and kind of the same like for the scale, for the street, for the location, some references. And on the right side, you can see we shared a lighting and a color references. We really wanted this to feel like early morning, a lot of fog. The space should feel more like a ghost city, but still having a sun rising. So, which is very symbolic. It was adding the contrast between the Thresh color, which is this necro-teal, early morning, foggy morning, with a warm Naxos color, and plus it was symbolizing just like a new day. It's just a new beginning of the Thresh's adventure. And we got first concepts. Again, they always deliver great stuff, but this didn't really kind of like match to what we were thinking about the scenes, because plus anyone who knows like League of Legends universe, when you look to our artwork and concept and regions, it doesn't feel like Earth. It feels like a different planet. It's just like it has these fantasy elements and aspects of it. And this felt like this is a city you can see in somewhere in Europe. So, and plus it was just more like a night rather than morning. So after working with them on a few notes and concepts, we received this pass that we were really happy with, and they incorporated some really interesting details that Naxos has. Like an example is this double roof. Like in Naxos, like they have like a lot of shapes having repetitive, and like they came out with some really cool ideas, like with these two tiny small tweaks pushing the Naxos style. And after working with them on a next rounds, this was the final concept art, which was also used in the final video of the cinematics. And again, like as I mentioned, some elements we model in 3D, but some backgrounds we just have more like a matte painting being used, and we just add some parallax on this matte painting. We add some effects to feel the space alive, so it's not just a frozen image. And this is actually from the video, this image using the carriage in this environment when Thresh starts his new adventure. And again, this was the end, and this was a very exciting opportunity to introduce Thresh's transformation into the human form, continuing his story beyond the Ring King event. And just wanted to use this opportunity to thanks all the artists working really hard on this video, making it to look really beautiful. And next we have Jason, our character animation, sharing the video and speaking about the animation that I'm also excited to hear. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lilit. I just wanted to ask you one question before we move on that came from Daniel Beatty, because I mean, we've looked at how important designing this space before heading into the modeling and the rendering and the rigging and everything is. You know, it's really great that you had an iterative design process too, so that when you got back the lighting, you could, you know, rework it and give direct notes through visuals. So, but this is an interesting comment. Daniel said, How do you plan for scenes when refinement and discovery occurs in the process of producing these scenes? So when in the process of, I mean, you had this beautiful design worked out, but when you sent it to the other artists, to the digital artists, did you discover things that you then pulled into the design?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really interesting question. I feel like it's a really flexible and fluid kind of process making these videos. And again, like sometimes, like even like for the characters, the modeler like can just change something. And sometimes we really like and appreciate and love, and we always actually appreciate that giving the creative freedom in each step, creating this video to push, like to have some like a freedom to change. I mean, again, like we might give the feedback and push back, but sometimes it's really successful, and we encourage like even like the artists like working at the pre-production side to bring something. So it's not like we don't want like be kind of like a micromanaging the art, you know, like in all the steps, even in a lighting. Yeah, it's like, let's go back to the color script, but sometimes some shots like we didn't have a color script, or like it was actually better than the color script. So of course it's a very flexible process, and we just love that creativity and freedom, like getting from the artists.
That's great. Well, you've gotten some amazing reviews on this work. I've read some of the fans writing about how the cinematic is like making them want to like go back and play everything again, and that they just love the design and the animation. So I think we have held off showing the actual piece. So I think Jason's going to show the piece now before he discusses the animation process.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, again, like thanks to the players loving our game first, and then we are just happy to inspire them with all these cinematics. Yeah, thanks, Maija.
Thank you.
Thieving little devil. Port! Get the food out! Double quick, sir. Here you are, sir. Bugger. Sorry, sir. Cursed arm. Yep, picked a Maija's pocket. He gave it the old zapparoo. Now it does what it wants. You have to watch who you trifle with in Roxas.
Do you now?
Port! Get the dishes, you crustaceous scum! Oh. Bugger! Pardon? Bugger! Port! More elk milk! Bloody smoked crab! Sorry, sir. Double quick, ma'am. Pardon. Dodgy arm. Sorry, cursed hand. More biscuits. More milk. Double quick, double quick. Would you like a warm bowl, sir?
No, thank you, Bort. I'm saving my appetite. For your service. Go on. Put it to pocket before someone else does.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. What? Well, I'd put it toward your debt if I didn't need to cover all the broken plates of stupidity. Bugger.
Going somewhere? Bort, my friend. I was a prisoner too. Longer than you could imagine. A phantom chained to the Shadow Isles. But no one escapes. I forgot how squishy they are. I'm free now to do as I wish.
Move, Bort! Oh no!
Here he is, friend Bort. The hand at your tether.
Wait! We're friends! Who else would tempted to it. A little ribbing between friends. Just me and her, Bort, having a laugh. Right, Bort? Right?
Someone gives and someone gets. There are two sides to every transaction. Your curse is his.
His profit, sir.
Would you like to be free, Bort? Never again to feel the sting of your accursed deformity?
You can do this.
My dear Bort, there is life, there is death, and there is me.
Don't mind the whip. Just a little ribbing between friends.
Hey, Jason.
Oh, there we go. Hi. Yeah.
So let me introduce you to everyone. Jason Hendrich is the principal animator and animation director at Riot Games. And he's had experience on League of Legends, Teamfight Tactics, KDA, and Valorant. And prior to Riot Games, he was lead animator at Blur Studio for almost a decade, animating on projects like Mass Effect, Batman, Arkham, is that the right pronunciation? Yeah. Star Wars, The Old Republic, Deadpool, and Halo. And most important for the purposes of this evening, he grew up on 80s horror while hiding behind the couch. So anyway, so we really look forward to hearing all about the animation process. So I will let you take it away.
Oh, yeah, no, thank you so much. And yeah, like Lilit said, just, yeah, thanks for having us. And yeah, let's go right into it. So yeah, hi, I'm here to talk a bit about the animation character that went into Thresh, Unbound, A Night at the Inn. I'll go over a general overview, then a basic breakdown of some of the characters and their actions. A good amount of this will cover strong opposing character archetypes and dive in a bit into emotional psychology, into their acting choices. And yeah, it's going to be fun. So yeah, as for me, Jason Hendrich, principal animator and animation director at Riot Games. And yeah, as mentioned before, I worked on Deadpool, Halo, Batman, Arkham, League of Legends, TFT. Yeah, my role is to make sure Riot holds a strong, cohesive style in the creative works that we accomplish. And if you notice in the corner is my cat Hugo. I had to trick him into sitting there with a pile of cat treats hidden behind my leg. Yeah, things can get pretty serious over here at Riot, needless to say. But yeah, before we start, I'd like to thank the director, Dustin Wicke. Without him, all this awesome wouldn't have happened. Our producer, Brian Reese, story idea by Tori Fika and Dana Shaw, writer Henry Jones, boards by Jordan Raskin, Rembert Montold, Dustin Wicke, and also huge thanks to Lilith, our art director, and amazing talent of the artists and animators at Riot Games, Axis Studios, and Little Zoo. It's really great partnership on this piece, and yeah, you can really feel the hard work that brings so much character and mood to it. And yeah, couldn't have done it without such great talent. So yeah, let's talk animation. So hopefully, you know, we all had a great chance to watch Thresh Unbound, and here's a quick little snippet of the boards going into something called previs layout, where it's kind of like a rough version of what the animation is, and then going into final animation and lighting. And it's pretty wild how much it changes, but yet still holds the same core feeling throughout the process, with nice little surprises here and there with like some awesome acting choices by the animators and such. First, yeah, let's break down the main characters. So first, let's cover Bort. So Bort appears to be a simple guy. He's more or less the lifeblood of the tavern. He's cooking, cleaning, entertainment for the patrons, what have you. And due to pickpocketing the wrong person, Bort has a claw for a hand. And Yeah, I think from like a motivational standpoint, basically Bort is two characters, Bort and Bort's Claw. So from outside, Bort appears to be, pretty cheerful, like considering the circumstances and doing the best with the situation he's in, extremely apologetic for, just about everything. But his Claw is kind of a character onto itself. It basically moves and acts independently with mischief and often aggression. We needed a character to like relate with and to contrast nicely with Thresh, who's like a guy who's always in control. And for Bort, yeah, it's really the whole piece is like a temptation of escapism from like this little nightmare he has in the tavern. He's a good person at heart. And I wanted to visually suggest that the claw could be interpreted as maybe Bort's subconscious being frustrated with his life, like self-hate, self-loathing personified. The claw would come out whenever he accomplished or really tried to do anything. So it just really just beat him down. So whenever Bort is frustrated himself or really even happy with himself, instincts would come out and just smash it down. Harsh, fast, angry motions outside of the body mechanics. And yeah, and even the tavern itself is like beating up on him, like through the claw, through Bort, through everything. He's just really unhappy internally, but is just trying his best. We've all been in rough spots, and you could say like Bort's entire life is a rough spot. He's just a really relatable guy. A lot of his motions and body mechanics are clumsy and doubtful. And really on the other side is the innkeeper and the inn itself. Like as characters, they're fairly simplistic as well. This is a short piece, so you kind of have to like simplify it a bit. They set the framework of Bort's torment and Thresh's supposed salvation from it, like an oppressive force against Bort pretty much throughout the piece. They laugh and jeer at him, and it creates an atmosphere. And if you notice, like when you watch the piece, the innkeeper, he just doesn't do anything. He's not working. All he does is yell at Bort and oppress. Most of his motions and body mechanics are sharp, shrill, standing in place, a lot of like pointing and aggressive posturing. Basically, the tone is set that we just really won't miss any of these characters once they're taken by Thresh. Like we understand and empathize with Bort and what Bort is facing. And yeah, finally, Thresh, if you pay attention, Thresh really never lies to Bort. Like he probably thinks he's doing him a kindness, as he kind of sees like a part of like an old self, a old version of himself in him. Thresh as a character really likes misery. It's almost like his source of power. So maybe he'd like to share the gift. The impression we wanted to give for Thresh is like akin to a force of nature in this piece. Body mechanics, motions, everything moves with strength and with purpose. No wasted motions. He has very predatory-like behavior. His body mannerisms is similar to that like of a monster wearing a mask, like sitting amongst prey. Like it's almost like he's uncomfortable with showing emotion. A wolf in sheep's clothing, in control at all times, and finds the situation just lightly amusing, really until he like unleashes his hunger and just lets loose. Basically, it's just a Tuesday for Thresh. And yeah, juxtapose that with Bort. You have one side kind, empathetic, emotional. We wanted the audience to relate with Bort and understand the choice he makes later. Like in this sequence, like Bort basically like takes a coin. Something subtle we wanted here is, well, when the claw interacts with the coin here, Thresh, through the coin touch, like the magic in the claw just instantly loses power immediately. It's almost like as if it's just Bort's hand for a moment. Thresh stops just the craziness, and the magic within the claw is like subtly terrified of Thresh. We wanted to convey it's a hint of just how powerful Thresh is, as well as move the focus back towards Bort and Thresh. Like prior to this, it's kind of like you're just seeing the claw do horrible things to Bort. And then onward, it's really just between Thresh, the inn, and Bort. Thresh treats Bort with respect, hands him a gold coin, which is really probably the kindest thing that Bort's ever received in his life. only for it to be immediately taken by the innkeeper. With how the innkeeper's hand enters the screen, it's a bit cartoonish, but I think the theme of this piece is pretty dark, and it's important to like inject some light moments here and there just to make it a little easier. There's a good chance that coin's worth more than a year's wage, maybe even 10 years' wages. Note in this moment, like this is something that I think it was done really well, is how like Bort's acting is before and after the coin is taken away. He shrinks back into like a shell of trauma, like eyes are glazed over, very little eye movement or anything, just avoiding eye contact, just completely beaten down. Maybe even more damaged by like just having that like slight glimmer of hope just stolen away. So one thing about horror movies I like, that I enjoy, like as I mentioned, is that it feels really good when antagonistic characters fall to the horror. So like, you know, after this, many of the motions and actions of the innkeeper and the inn itself, like, you know, we really just wanted to push that. So yeah, when it does happen, it's like, yeah, you know, it's just a comeuppance. And yeah, and also, by the way, shorting reference is pretty fun. Hope you guys like my socks. Also some really killer boards by, I think, Dustin Wiki here. And yeah, so after closing the inn, this is when Thresh goes into action. Some really killer color design by Lilit. Like prior to this, the inn is like kind of red hues, kind of warm. And now we're kind of like entering into like this cold realm where it's like, this is when things go down. Like you instinctively can tell like, this is when things are getting serious. For an animation standpoint, for this, I always felt like horror in this retrospect, like for this kind of thing, is actually pretty easy to do. Is just don't really show it, suggest it. Like the audience's mind does far more than anything that's shown on screen. So it's like we never really see what's going on behind this door or in that room, but like our imagination does such a good job. It's like, I don't know if my abilities would really surpass the audience's imagination. And yeah, they fill in the blanks, and I think it's just a really powerful visual tool. And on Thresh's reveal, fully unleash, Gon's the mask. He's no longer covering himself. He's a predator amongst sheep. All his motions are outworldly on purpose. He doesn't trip over the rubble or swing his arms wildly. It's just a clean walk. Another cool detail that Dustin added is like, if you notice in the background, you can kind of see like what he actually is. Like it's like a skeletal form in the shadowing. This is pretty neat. It's like a paper face on parade sort of vibe with that form. And this is another one, like this is a fun detail. So in this section, usually when people look in a direction, like when they're looking at something, there's a subtle eye dart towards like a physical, before a big physical body motion. And for this, we just wanted to make sure Thresh just turned and went into action, which like from an animation or a naturalistic standpoint, no one would really do that. But in this, it like kind of like gives like a nice instinctive feel. Like he already knows someone's there trying to escape. He doesn't need to look. And like, it just gives like a nice, like powerful vibe. There's also some tricks gleaned from anime and the illusion of force timing, like showing a close-up of his face for a brief second, close-up of the hook into moving perspective shot into a close-up of the guy getting grabbed. Basically dynamic shape language of big shape into small shape back into big shape with like really fun dynamicism. And yeah, it just shows like how clean it is. Another nice note is like when the guy flies into him, it's like hitting a brick wall. Like Thresh just not like adjust body weight or anything. The guy just weighs like nothing compared to him. And Bort in the background being absolutely terrified helps a lot too. And this is the moment where the claw basically is the most, like the last time it's actually independent. Right now, Bort and Bort's claw are working together, at least from an emotional standpoint, probably for the first time in their lives. We wanted to ease the tension a bit. So the claw basically just winds up and releases like a catapult, which creates like a light, funny moment to ease the dark tone. like just note how Bort just holds that pose, which really helps add to the claw being isolated in the motion, and just well how hard the innkeeper gets smacked. It's like almost like a flip. And yeah, this sequence is great. Like kind of alluding to what Lilit was talking about. Like if you notice a detail on Thresh, well, when the GIF kind of loops back, like he lifts his eyebrow, and that was something like the animator added that was just really like everyone loved it. So that was something that wasn't planned for, but it added so much. Yeah, it just adds to the moment. Like even when dealing with the situation, the innkeeper still shows hatred towards Bort. But right now the innkeeper is not important. Thresh's main interest is what Bort's decision is, whether or not he goes back to his life of pain or join Thresh as a bound soul. And well, neither is a good choice, but well, one's better than the other, at least for Bort. Being with Thresh at least has a sliver of control over his life. And yeah, in terms of body mechanics, again, Thresh is that of a rock. Like the innkeeper in his struggles doesn't even affect him. And this is the decision where Bort goes internal. He takes in what Thresh says, looking at the claw, sees what the situation for what it is. We wanted the audience to really empathize with Bort in his decision, to really understand like where he's coming from. It's not a great offer, being trapped forever, but it's got a degree of control. And you lose the claw. Thresh doesn't lie because he doesn't need to. Bort's in a really rough place. And like, I think in terms of like the audience, I think we probably might even make the same choice given the circumstances. And yeah, with that, Bort is lost, but at least he doesn't have a claw for a hand. And yeah, I think that just about wraps it up. Where does the journey take them? Who can truly say? This project was just an absolute blast to work on. It feels really great given the response it's received from both horror fans and art players alike.
Thank you so much, Jason.
Mm-hmm.
That was amazing. It's amazing work, and I hope there's a feature film out of this. I hope it keeps growing. I hope Night at the Inn continues and the world expands as it is. That it was really informative too. It was fascinating to hear about how you plotted the claw as a separate character, which it really was. But just in some of the decisions, the way you were making decisions in terms of shape and form was really interesting. Also, the fact that some elements were very abstract, like the effects, the sort of smoke and sort of eerie smoke was very coming from a 2D tradition of special effects put into that 3D environment. So I loved it. Now, no, I don't see any questions here. So you better, if you want to ask Jason a question, speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, or ask him in the VR party. So thank you so much, Jason. And I want to invite you and all the other members to join us in Mozilla Hubs for the after party. And I will turn this over to Sunil. Sunil.
Hi, Maija, and thanks everyone. Thanks to all of the presenters. This was amazing. I was like glued to my screen watching everyone's talks. There were, just to let you know that it was recorded and will be available on our chapter's YouTube channel, which is, and if you're a member, you should have the info that you can use to access the after party that Maija was talking about. That's going to be happening in Mozilla Hubs right now, actually, as soon as this ends. So see you all there. Ciao.
Bye.